This day was a pretty average homemaking day. I had a bunch of things to do in the kitchen. We are going to be making some sourdough bread, processing the carrots from my garden this summer, as well as making some breadcrumbs. So I thought that I would take you along. Like I said, this was a pretty normal day. I usually do a few things like this in my kitchen. I'm always making food from scratch. So first here you can see that I am just scoring a loaf of sourdough bread. This is bread that I started the day before, and I'm just about to put it in the oven and bake it while I do some other tasks in the kitchen. And you can see on the stove there, I have a couple loaves of sourdough sandwich bread that are already finished. This was a bread making day. I made a bunch of bread for us for the week, and now I'm going to get started on my carrots. I have had these carrots sitting in my back hall for a while, and I need to get to them before they go bad. So I'm just going to be blanching and then freezing them. I debated pickling them or doing something more interesting with them, but honestly, I typically just use carrots in like soups or chicken pot pie or recipes like that. So that's what I'm going to be doing with them. So basically, I just washed them all. I already cut all the greens off. I didn't record that part. Next year, I need to remember to do that outside because it always makes such a big mess, but we have tons of snow. This was a really, really cold, windy day, so I wasn't going to do it outside. But basically, I just washed them all, cut the ends off, and then I'm going to chop them into little pieces. So I pulled my artisan sourdough loaf out of the oven, and I always like to let that fully cool down before I cut into it. I find if you cut it too early, then you can get like a gummy, uncooked part in the middle. And I like to slice my bread and then freeze it since we don't always get through this in a few days. And then I freeze it in Ziplocs. I don't love using Ziplocs, but honestly, this is just the best method. on to blanching my carrots. This is basically just putting all the chopped up carrots into hot boiling water for about 2 minutes. You're not trying to cook them, but this just helps to lock in all the nutrients. And then I just strain all that liquid out, and then I throw them into a bowl of ice, and this just cools them down so that they don't continue cooking, because like I said, you don't want them to be cooked and soft. And then I actually spread them out on some cookie sheets, and I put them outside because it was like -18 outside. So this was the finished product. They are frozen super nicely, not stuck together. And then if I ever have sourdough bread that just isn't great, or maybe it went stale before we were able to finish it all, I will cut it into little pieces and just cook it until it's all dried out. And you can either use that as croutons, or I just stick it into the blender and it makes a really nice breadcrumb that I can use for any recipe. And I just use that for any recipe that calls for breadcrumbs. So I made a huge mess this whole process because I was trying really hard to get all of this done before the sun goes down, which is so early these days. So now I just need to take some time and clean up. I still needed to cook dinner, so I didn't like fully deep clean the kitchen, but I like to reset it in between doing tasks, otherwise it just gets super out of control.